And in 2994 is when the second degree murder was. Is that correct?
I was arrested the night of the 23rd and then charged with murder while I was in jail.
You were in jail when you were charged with murder, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. As I go that, I want you to give the board just something real brief about what all happened, in your words.
I had gone out drinking with some friends, and gradually as the night wore on, I met a woman and we connected, and later on we were parked out beside the river, and from the best of my recollection, she just started screaming and yelling that I raped her, and I panicked and I shot her.
You had never knew her before, right?
No, sir.
And after you shot her, what happened?
I covered her body up with some brush and went home, and a couple of days later, I brought a friend over in that area and told him what had happened. And that eventually led to me getting arrested for DWI and charged with murder.
Right. That's what I want to make sure you tell the board, to make sure they know. I know they all got to sign, but the murder happened before that. And then when you got to DWI is when you came back and gave your statement, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is your job title where you at the prison right now?
I work for the range crew.
For the range crew?
Yes, sir.
How long you been working with the range crew?
Off and on for about 5 years now.
That's a pretty trusted position there where you working at now at the range crew. How long have you been incarcerated totally?
I believe 28 years.
28 years. And is there Warden's anything you had to say on your behalf?
Yeah, he has been back and forth in and out of range crew for the last 5 years, which, like you said, that is a trusted position for us. He's been at the incinerator for a while. He's been in some other areas, but those were for institutional need. So the time out of the range crew has been because we needed him other places. But still, it's been outside of the fence, and he's been doing good work for us.
Right. Well, thank you, Mr. You know, as I see here, you got your GED back in '99, and also your welding at the state penitentiary, the NCR certificates, in tutor in welding. You had great vocational training while you've been there through prison enterprise. You worked in game bird management. Well, that's good. You've done a lot of good things there. And then I look back down here where you've done your 100 hours pre-release, substance abuse, living in balance, thinking for a change, victim awareness, including a letter of accountability. You've had some good programs since you've been incarcerated. You've had 4 disciplinary write-ups, and it's a trusted position. I see where you're at there. So I don't have any more, anything else I'd like to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Ms. Jackson has some questions. Ms. Jackson?
How you doing, Mr. Morrow?
Good evening.
I haven't heard a lot about your transition plan. If you were to be granted early release, then what?
Well, I've been in contact with Carrie Myers at the probation project, and
Project?
yes, ma'am. And plan to work with them through that, getting transitioned back into society.
Have they taken you on as a client?
They said that once we get through this process right here, that then they would take me on for the parole thing, because they only work with the parole.
Well, Okay. Where would you live? I mean, where would you like to live?
I had things set up to live with my aunt in Leesville, but those plans fell through and I'm engaged to be married to a woman that lives in Texas. So we're planning to transfer to Texas.
Why did the plans with your aunt fall through?
Primarily, she's getting up in age and health reasons and stuff like that. And I just felt it would be too much of a strain on her.
And who is your girlfriend and how did you meet her and how long have you been in a relationship with her?
Her name is Casey Tatum, and I met her through a pen pal program, and we've been together approximately about 6 years now.
Have you ever met her personally? Has she ever
Yes.
been?
Yes, ma'am. She's been on my visiting list for years now.
And she's come and visited?
Yes, ma'am. She would be on here as somebody for me today, but she had surgery this morning, so she wasn't able to participate.
And where does she live in Texas?
She lives in Midland, Texas.
And what does she do for a living?
She works for the state of Texas. She
And what
works
co-
social
what-
services.
All right. And tell me what kind of work you would do.
Well, her father, which would be my future father-in-law, owns a oil field fabrication company, or he's part owner in an oil field fabrication company. So I'd be welding for him.
All right, thank you. That's all I have, Ms. Renatza.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. That's what I was going to ask you, Mr. Morrow, is where's your family? But you just explained at least why your fiance is not here today. I don't see any other questions by my colleagues. Is there a statement you'd like to make to us before we vote?
I just want to thank y'all for the opportunity to present myself and express, my regrets that it even had to come to this right here.
All right. Thank you, sir. I believe we're prepared to vote. Mr. Wise will be voting first.
At this time, I'm gonna be voting. I'm gonna vote to grant with immediate parole eligibility. You've done some very good programs. I see you also, you've been working in a very trusted position where you at. You've had 4 disciplinary write-ups. So, and good luck with this, because I know you still got a long way to go. You have another, if the governor was to do this, you'd still have to go before the parole board. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
So that was a commute to 99 years with immediate parole
Yeah.
eligibility?
I grant to commute to 99.
Okay,
Immediate
thank
parole.
you. Mr. Roche?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
my vote is to commute to 99 years with parole eligibility after serving 30 years.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Marabella?
Mr. Morrow, you've been in 27 years, is that right?
27 or 28.
Okay. After listening to the interview, looking at your record, your low risk, the comments by the warden, and the work that you have done there, my vote is likewise going to be commute with immediate parole eligibility. Commute to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Ms. Jackson?
All right, Ms. Morrow, I will confess that I'm a little bit concerned about your explanation of the crime. Why she would accuse you of rape if you met her in a bar and you all agreed consensually to have sex, and why that would have prompted you to take her life. I will tell you, I'm really concerned about that. but you have been in almost 30 years. Unfortunately, the victim is really forgotten in this. She has no family here in Louisiana. There was nobody to reach out. They had no way of really identifying her or who her family was. But you have been a trustee for 11 years. You're in a trusted position. Your risk assessment is low, and I guess the most impressive thing is that you've only had 4 write-ups in your time that you've been there, and you did seem in your statement to be genuinely remorseful. And so for that reason, I will I vote to commute to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jackson and Mr. Morrow. I do concur with my colleagues. My vote today would also be to commute to 99 years and with immediate parole eligibility. So, sir, we'll make that recommendation on your behalf to the governor. Good luck to you.
Thank y'all. Good evening.
Well, I don't have anything to unpack with this in terms of like court records or anything. All I can say is thank you, Ms. Jackson, for bringing up the victim, which you rightfully said there's no representation in this case, wasn't even brought up. I agree that to think that someone 27 years later would still have a story that makes absolutely no sense. Oh, we went out to the bar. She started accusing me of it, so I shot her. It's like, well, maybe it's more likely that, like, that's probably what you were doing, and then you shot her because you didn't want anyone to know. I mean, the whole story is probably so much, and I think people should be held accountable. My always viewpoint on this is if you can't come out and speak the truth, then you shouldn't get rewarded. And his story about his way that he believes it happened just makes no sense. And it's just further like diminishing his responsibility in crime. I also didn't see any remorse. And if you lie, you can't have remorse. I don't get that part. I don't get how they reward someone who seems to clearly be lying. That just how that can possibly be your story is something I can't understand. But I don't have, I guess they just wanted to commute. He's been locked up a long time, and that's it. I don't know what else to say. But I guess what I can say, maybe the governor felt the same way. According to his record, he's still in Angola. So, what normally happens, they make a recommendation to the governor signs it, then he has a parole hearing and he gets out. And either the governor signed it with conditions to serve 30 years, and we'll see a parole hearing come up any day now, or he just denied it. So isn't that interesting? I mean, it's not every day the governor would deny a commutation recommendation by a unanimous board that he handpicks to make these decisions. I don't know the answer, but thank you, Richard, for putting this together. And with that, I'll let you go.
Brent, as she mentioned, I'll read some information into the record. I ask you to verify that information, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Marabella because your case has been assigned to him. Okay?
All right.
Okay. So you are Leon Brent. Your DOC number is 74779. You're classified as a first felony offender. You're here because you submitted a commutation, a request for commutation of your sentence. You were out of East Baton Rouge Parish in November of 1964, sentenced to death for an aggravated rape conviction. You were resentenced in 1971 to life. Mr. Brent, is that information correct?
I was resentenced in 1973.
1973. Well, thank you, sir. All right. Would you answer Mr. Marabella's questions?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Brent, my name is Tony Marabella. Your case has been assigned to me, so I'll be the panel member that talks with you first. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Brent, how old are you? You're not quite 82, is that right?
81,
81. You'll be 82 soon, is that right?
December the 22nd,
All right. And how long have you been in prison?
58 years.
And you were, by my calculations, 23, 24 when this occurred?
Right. 23.
Mr. Brent, I don't want to dwell a lot on the facts of the case, but I do want to talk a little bit about them, because up until then, you had a couple of misdemeanor charges. Tell me what prompted you to commit this vicious rape?
I really don't know myself. Because that wasn't part of my nature. It's just something that just happened for the moment.
Well, what do you mean it just happened on the spur of the moment? Tell
It
me
wasn't-
what you remember about what happened.
Well, I remember going into an office and accosting a white lady. And after that, I was arrested.
You say accosted her, you raped her, you had a knife, right?
I didn't rape her. I had a knife, but I didn't rape her. I had the knife.
What did you do? You say you didn't rape her, you were convicted of aggravated rape.
I have, yeah. When I went in that office, I started to rape her, but I quit. I stopped.
You say you started to rape her. What does that mean? You know, the legal rape is, doesn't mean you have to finish the rape. You remember going in there. What did you go to that office for?
I was passing by the office. I used to go up to that building when I was working downtown at Bush Jewelers. I used to go up to a building to take jewelry to Mr. Madare, Jewel Madare. And I used to pass the office all the time.
Now, Mr. Brent, you've been in prison for a long time and you've taken a lot of programs, and I see all of the things that you've done. Have you given any thought to what you did to that lady that day, and what pain and what terror that must have caused to her?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
In many years. And I'm very, very remorseful for what the pain that I caused her and her family, and my family also. And if I could erase that, I would erase it, but it's something that it was just a bad situation that happened, and I'm just, I know she was devastated, and I was devastated myself, because, like I said, that wasn't a part of my nature. That just, I really can't explain what caused me to do that myself.
Were you on alcohol? Were you drinking? Were you taking drugs?
I never drank before in my life. I never used drugs before in my life.
You were 23 years old. Were you married? Did you have a relationship?
I had a wife. I had been married 4 months and 2 months and 19 days.
Did you know this lady before? This was just some stranger you walked into a building and decided to rape?
No, I didn't know her, but I saw her a couple of times by going to Mr. Madare to take jury.
Where did you get the knife?
I was working at Bush Jewelers. I had the knife peeled and passed for one of the ladies in the office, and I just put it in my back pocket. When the manager gave me this jury to take to Madare, I just put the knife in my back pocket and left out with Mr. Madare's office.
Tell me, in the 58 years you've been in prison, what's the best? You've taken a lot of programs. What's the best programs, or what has helped you the most while you've been in there?
Thinking for a change.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, this type of program that teaches you to think before you do things, to make decisions after you analyze situations. You just don't go headlong into everything. It's a program that gives you the teaches you how to make good decisions.
Now, you quit school in the 11th grade, I believe. Is that right?
I did.
You got your GED while you've been in prison?
Yes, sir.
I think in 1975 you got your GED?
Yes, sir.
What kind of jobs have you had while you've been in prison? What kind of work have you done?
The first job I had was classification clerk. I was a classification clerk up here
Okay.
for the main prison that I did parole board preparations. Next job, other jobs I had was groundkeepers, where I used to keep the ground, keep grass, cut, plant flowers, and something like beautification.
Are you still doing that? I understand you've had that since 2012. Are you still doing that?
Yes, I am.
So that's the job you currently have?
Yes, sir.
What is your status? Are you a trustee?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been a trustee?
Since I think 2008.
Okay. Now, I notice in the programs that you've taken, one of the programs that you've taken is you've taken all 4 phases of the sex offender treatment program. Tell me what you learned in those programs, in that specific program about sex offender. What sort of things did you learn or have you come to acknowledge and realize having taken the sex offender treatment program?
A sex offender treatment program, it starts off teaching you about what prompts you to do, commit such a crime. It gives you, it helps you to realize the factors that will play into you committing this type of crime. It also have a word list where it gives you words that you would recognize, things that you would recognize to help you realize that you are about to commit another crime, a sex crime. And it teaches you how to understand these what would be warning signs for you, to turn you away or to make you realize that you're about to do something that you shouldn't do.
Did it also talk about the effects that a rape has on the victims?
Yes, it does.
Your victim in this case is no longer, she's dead now, but she suffered for years and years as a result of this. Do you realize that? Do you understand that?
Yes, sir. I do realize that.
What would
And
you say to her if she were here?
I don't know if I could say anything to change what happened or to make her feel any better, but I would let her know that I was really, really devastated myself for what I did to her, and I'm sorry that she had to go through the type of life that she went through after this happened to her. And if it was any kind of way that I could correct this and make things better for her, I would gladly do it if it had to, if I could.
Now, you've had 75 write-ups. That sounds like a lot, but you've been in prison for 58 years. You haven't had a write-up in 2009, is that right?
I think so.
What were some of the write-ups you got? What were some of the things that you did when you were in prison?
Most of them was for work-related write-ups. I had a few for fighting. It was the type of write-ups where you're working in the field and some days you just don't feel like working. And I've had a couple of insubordination write-ups where I talk bad to security, curse security.
But you haven't done anything like that since at least 2009.
No, sir, I haven't. You know, it's in prison. When you come to prison, I was young when I came to prison, and when you get to prison, it's a lot of things that you have to face. And by me being so young, one of the things that you face in prison is you want to always look want to try to keep yourself on a status where you're not, what I would say, stepped on or walked over.
I understand.
You know, so, and my trying to stay on the upside, it got me into a lot of trouble. But as years go on, you mellow out, you find out that you can get past most of this trouble by just using everyday common sense.
What kind of associations did you have while you were in prison? I know you did Inside Out Dads. You did CPR and first aid. Did you work with anybody within the prison system to help them out or anything?
Well, I took the courses, but in most instances, they have what you call people that teaches the class. Most of them do all of that. I never had a chance to do CPR, but I did CPR once on an older man when I was at Camp C. But the rank came and they took over and did it themselves. I took these courses mostly to be able to use them when I have to use them. It's something for a tool, you know, you never can tell when you would have to use these courses.
Now you've been up for pardon, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about six times or so, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
And you continue to do well. Is the warden there? Let me get some information from the warden about how you're doing.
Yes, sir. He has been, since December of 2010, a minimum B, which would be because of the charge, the highest that he would ever be able to attain as far as that minimum custody status. He's been out at Camp F, which is our trustee dorm, or trustee camp rather, since 2012, and has continued to be a groundskeeper for us. He has been in and out of our hospital. He does have frequent appointments with primary care as well as some specialty care, mostly related to the fact that we're all getting older. But other than that, like he said, his last write-up being of such in 2009, have not had any other issues.
Thank you, Warden. Mr. Brent, tell me a little bit about your health. You're about to be 82 years old. You look like you're in pretty good shape as you sit there. Tell me about your physical health.
My physical health is fine. I do a lot of physical things. I work out a lot. I run a lot. And since I've been in prison, I had 2 operations for hernias. Other than that, I have what you call minor cases of high blood pressure. I'm not in the place where I just have to sit around and wait to die. I try to keep my health and thing in good type of shape.
Mr. Brent, tell me in your own words why I should vote to let you out.
Well, I'm 81 years old, and I've done 58 years in prison. Over those years, I've had nephews, great nieces that come into my family that I never spent any time with. And I would like to, whatever time that I have left, I would like to be able to go home and spend some quality time with them, and get to know them, and get to learn them, do different things with them. And by me being here in prison, it's just, my life has been wasted, and it's because of me. And it might be something that I might be able to do to go out in the street and maybe help them and guide them and keep them from getting into the same any kind of trouble that I've gotten into. I might be maybe some kind of inspiration to them. I may be able to give them some information to help them. And that's one of the reasons why I really would like to get out of prison. If I'd be able to spend some time with my family members before my time expires.
If you were to get out at some point, where would you live?
Well, I got a number of places I could live. One mainly with my sister-in-law in Los Angeles, California. She have a garage apartment. She told me whenever I get out of prison, I could come out there and stay in the garage apartment. And that's where most of my nieces, great nieces and nephews stay. And I could, you know, be of some help to her since my brother passed away.
Thank you, Mr. Brent. Madam Chairman, that's all the questions that I have.
Thank you,
Sir.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Now we'll hear from the folks who are here today in support. First, we'll start with Bliss George. If you could unmute your microphone, please.
Good afternoon to the board and all others. My name is Bliss George. I live in Baton Rouge. I'm a second cousin of Leon's Brent. On my father's side, I would like to say that when this happened, I was only 8 years old. I heard different things. So as the family died off, his parents, my parents, that used to be his visitors, brothers, after they all passed off, we came in contact with him, I think at one of the rodeos. So we started to visit, my husband and I, and my sister. And I got to know him, because like I said, I was only 8 years old when this happened. So I got to know him as a person, and I started visiting him in Angola. And I can truly say that I enjoyed the visits. He informed me on the background of the family, things that I didn't know, that whereas family members had died off. I also, we talked on various subjects, from health to the Bible, just all different subjects. And I was impressed, to say the least, on the knowledge that he had gained. And I'm sure, and I know that this knowledge that he got was taking advantage of the programs that was offered at Angola. And so with all the visits, I can truly say that I think if he was released, he would truly be an asset to the society. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. George. Can we hear now from sister-in-law, Ms. Brent, Ms. Emma Brent?
Yes, my name is Emma Brent. I'm a resident of Los Angeles, California. I married Leon's brother in 1974, and I've only had a few visits with him there at Angola physically. But we talk on the phone every week, and he's been a real encouragement to my family. My husband died 10 years ago, and because of that, my children were devastated. But to have their uncle to talk to them when he would call, it was an encouragement for them. I truly believe that if he were to be released, that he would be a great benefit to them. He's been very encouraging to me. And we do have things set in motion now that if he is able to be released and come to California, that we'll be able to help him with employment. One of my stepchildren is a former Los Angeles policeman who has his own security business, and he's guaranteed employment for him. This would be the type of security that does not involve any kind of weapons. And I have a place where he can stay. And as he mentioned earlier, that most of his nieces and nephews are here in Los Angeles, and it would be beneficial to all of us I feel like the time that he has served and the time that we have spoken about this situation has been more than sufficient. That he'll be a benefit to not only our family, but to the entire community, because he has a lot of experience and positive things that he can share. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Emma. We appreciate your input. Mr. Brent, is there anything else you'd like to say to the board?
Yes,
All right.
I would like to say to the board that I'm truly remorseful about what happened. And I take full responsibility for what happened. But I would also like to be able, I would like for the board to give me an opportunity to go home, be able to spend some time with my family, and to just spend the rest of the few years, whatever I have left, helping them and being of service to them, and maybe to some other people in the community.
Thank you, sir. The board's prepared to vote. We'll start with Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Brandt, the crime of rape is devastating on the victim. Ms. Kleber suffered for years and years, both physically and emotionally, as a result of what you did. You've had time to reflect on this. You know, I know you've been in prison for a long time, and I know you've taken a lot of good classes, but I'm not sure, even as long as you've been in prison, you really get the gravity of what you did to that lady, and how it affected her life. Yes, you've been in prison all of these years. Yes, you've been affected, obviously, but you committed that crime. And she suffered for years and years as a result of what you did to her. You've taken our sex offender courses. You're very articulate. I'm not sure what I was expecting when I saw your age as almost 82 years old. I was very pleased to see how spry you are, and how well you communicate. You know, I see that. You've done a lot of positive things while you've been in prison. You've got a lot of good family support. You do have law enforcement opposition to your release. You have a good recommendation from the warden. Your disciplinary record has been very good for the last 11 to 12 years. I want you to think more about that victim. I want you to look inside a little more and realize maybe not only how this has affected you, but how this has affected her in her entire life. You've been in prison for 58 years. I'm going to go ahead and I believe that it's probably time for you to be able to think about getting out. You've done well in prison. My only problem that I have right now is maybe you're reflecting on what happened to that victim in this case. So my vote today is going to be to commute your sentence to 99 years and make you immediately parole eligible, primarily because of all of the things you've done. You're going to be 82 years old in just a little bit. You've got excellent family support, and you've got good comments by the warden. So that would be my vote, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Ms. Jackson.
All right, Mr. Brent, if I live as long as you have, I hope that I'd be in as good a shape as you are, and I hope I would have the mental faculties that you have. And we've seen men in prison who are not nearly as old as you, but prison has, really worn them down. But you didn't let that happen. You stayed positive, you took care of yourself, you performed well in prison. You have a low risk assessment, you have excellent family support. I can't imagine what it must have been like for those 10 years when you had the death sentence hanging over you. Those years had to have been really hard. But I think you overcame all of that. You've done well. And my vote today is to grant a commutation to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Wise?
Well, at this time, I'm going to be voting to grant commutation 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. You've been, one reason is because of your age, and you've been 58 years incarcerated in some of the programs you took, positive programs you've taken, also with a low risk. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Roche?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Brent, excuse me, Mr. Brent, I want to echo everything my colleagues have said this afternoon, but I want to add one thing. I am sitting here in amazement at the sharpness of your mind, the breadth of your knowledge. As Mr. Marabella, I looked at your age and says, she will be 82 years old next month, which is sharp as any 30-year-old. Your memory is terrific. And I need to know your secrets. My vote is the same, to commute to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. Good luck.
All right, Mr. Brent. First, let me just start off, Ms. Dupree, by apologizing. I passed over your comments, and I do apologize for that. But my vote also is the same, Mr. Brent. My vote would be to recommend commutation to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. And I just echo all the remarks that have already been made. So good luck to you, sir. We're going to make that recommendation on your behalf to Governor Edwards. Thanks, everybody, for participating. And again, Ms. Dupree, my apology.
Thank all of you.
Okay, so certainly an interesting case, one that might even be studied. And also what I want to point out is that here is a man who was put on death row, as Ms. Jackson had stated, had spent 10 years on death row, and now has been commuted and is free. And why that is so important is that recently we have seen many death row cases. For the previous governor had put up all of these inmates who had done the most horrible crimes, who are sitting on death row, and they were asking to have their death row sentence commuted. Not that they would be commuted to be set free, but just so that they would be taken off of death row. And something that we saw falsely, erroneously stated by those death row inmates' defense attorneys were, we are not asking for this person to ever be free. They will never be free. They're going from death row to general population. So why are you all so worried about it? And we had a few of the prosecuting attorneys say, no, that's not the case. This is their first bite at the apple. They can then come back for a second bite of the apple. Mr. O'Shea actually stated this, and then get commuted. And we had heard their attorneys say, no, that's never happened. And we know it's happened. We've seen it. They just completely lied intentionally, or just unaware of the many cases that we've seen, this being one of them. This is someone who was on death row, was taken off, and now is set to be free. Whether you think you should or not, that's a different point. But I did want to bring that up. Now, here's another, I guess, controversial part of his appeal. They were saying that it was race motivated, that's part of the reason why he got the death penalty. you can make your own conclusion on that. But we'll also go over what he claims happened, which is, but so thirdly, the petitioner complains that the district attorney made certain inflammatory remarks before the jury, and particularly he contends that since he is a member of the African American race, and that the jury was an all-white jury, that the district attorney should not have referred to the sexual assault victim as white girl. So petitioner does not now argue or contend before this court that the jury was improperly selected, nor did he urge any such claims before the court, Louisiana. Actually, no substantial ground upon which to base his argument for the issuance of writ habeas corpus, other than one relative to the alleged improper introduction of evidence pertaining to the prior convictions, which is hereafter discussed. As to the remarks made by the district attorney, inflammatory. There is no merit in this contention. After all, the victim of the crime took the stand. She took the stand as a witness, and is quite apparently to the jury that she was a white girl. That's what they're saying. Like, it shouldn't have made a difference that the attorney said that. Although, if I'm going to share my 2 cents, I mean, at the time that this crime took place, to deny that there's probably racial divide in 1967 Louisiana, you'd have to be in denial. I mean, there's a reason they gave him the death penalty, right? There was no prejudice to the defending resulting from this reference to the victim of the crime. The record disclosed no other evidence of unlawful prejudicial remarks having been made before the jury. The defense counsel freely admitted during the hearing before the court that there was little merit of any of these 3 contentions. They were urged, however, of any abundance of caution that could merit these contentions. It is petitioner's contention that he had admitted that he had been convicted of prior offenses. The questioning should have ended there. Instead, the district attorney not only questioned petitioner about the details of his prior convictions, but also presented the testimony of the victim of a prior offense, who was also a white girl. The introduction of the evidence took place as follows. The state did not attempt to introduce the evidence of prior convictions during its case in chief, but when the defendant voluntarily took the witness stand, the district attorney on cross-examination questioned him as to a prior conviction. The court properly limited the questioning to questions pertaining to convictions as distinguished from arrests or offenses. The petitioner admitted that he had been convicted of disorderly conduct and sentenced to serve 60 days. He was then asked by the district attorney, what was this disorderly conviction as a result of you insulting a white girl? This was objected to by the counsel for petitioner, who contended that when the petitioner admitted a prior conviction, no evidence could be introduced concerning the details of the offense for which he had been convicted. The court overruled this objection and stated under the law of Louisiana, attorney could produce evidence pertaining to other convictions, but not as prior arrests or offenses. The district attorney then proceeded to produce evidence of both by cross-examination of petitioner and later by a rebuttal witness to show that the prior conviction involved a mode of operation used by the defendant most exactly the same as testified by the complaining witness in this case. The complaining witness in this case had testified that the petitioner came into the office. Okay, so here is what the witness said had happened in this case, and it is a horrible crime. And his excuse for it is a joke, and the idea that he took the stand seems very unwise, questionable to say the least. I mean, how the attorney could have allowed that. I mean, if he insists, he insists. You can't stop it, but you'll see what I mean. So the complaining witness in this case had testified that the petitioner came into the office where she was working alone and asked her if her boss was there. He said he was looking for a job cleaning offices. He then looked toward a back room and asked what was there, and she told him a storeroom. He said that as he was looking for a job cleaning up offices, he would like to look at the back room. He then gave her what he claimed to be his name, which was actually a fictitious name, and asked if she would have her boss call him when he came back. While she was writing the name and number down, the petitioner locked the front door of the office, looked around to see no one was in the offices and then grabbed her, brandishing a knife, forced her into the back room where he proceeded to sexually assault her and later cut her with the knife. He then tied her with a rope and left her bleeding on the floor. So that's what he did to her. Now, his story, on the other hand, was that he did, in fact, have sexual contact with the complaining witness, but he insists that there was no actual penetration or sexual assault occurred. Now, this part is interesting because it is the same as to what he's stating today, and that is interesting. He stated that but here's where it just gets ridiculous. He stated that she enticed him into her office, ordered him to have intercourse with her, and threatened him with calling the police and claiming that he had sexually assaulted her if he did not do as she ordered. He also admitted cutting her with a knife and tying her up before he left the premises. So, yeah, I mean, imagine if you're his defense attorney and he says, I'm going to go up there in the stand and say that's what happened. It's like, oh, come on. The purpose of the testimony concerning the prior conviction was to show that the approach used by the petitioner on a prior occasion involving a different victim was a similar approach to that he alleged by the complaining witness to have used in this case. So the prior victim, he did something similar? Is that what they're saying? Whether or not the introduction of evidence violated the law of the state of Louisiana, if of no moment in this habeas corpus proceeding, the only question is whether or not he violated federally protected rights. The question must be answered in the negative. I don't know enough about law and stuff to know whether or not they could have brought that up, whether that was admissible. Bringing it up and alluding to it being a part of a hate crime, I don't know. No idea. But it is interesting that you would get the death penalty for this. I don't know if they handed them out like candy back in Louisiana. I don't know. I don't know enough to comment, but what do you think? He is now free and he's still, as far as I can tell from the records, kicking and screaming, as in very much alive. But yeah, love to hear your thoughts on this, and thank you, Richard, for the information. And with that,